What's going on, everybody? My name's Tommy Luke. Unfortunately, we do not have Damien on today. He just got snake bitten not too long ago. He's currently in the Hackettstown Hospital, but joined today by Bobby Jordan. Bobby was a two-time All-American for Johnson and Wales, state medalist for Woodbridge back in the day. So that's the first thing I kind of want to get into. Talk to me about your high school career at Woodbridge. You're around a 12 for them your junior year. You took seventh your senior year in a pretty loaded bracket. So talk about that a little bit. And then after that, all said and done, talk to me about your recruiting process a little bit and how you ended up, at Johnson and Wales and some other schools you were considering a little bit.
Definitely. Yeah, so in high school, I was the almost guy for like every major tournament. So at NHSCA's, I think my sophomore year, I lost in the blood round to Kevin Jack. And then Super 32 my senior year, I went 5-2, lost to make it to day two at a weight up from what I was going. So I never really got to that point until maybe my senior year of high school, when I took seventh. And in order to really get to that point, I had to lose in the blood round my junior year at States. So I really tried to learn from my losses, and I had to figure out whether it was just the size, because I was a small kid, or if it was the technique side. So ultimately, I realized that the size is going to come as I get older, and the only thing I could do is just get better at the sport. So I really spent time at learning at what I'm good at and what I'm not good at. Obviously, it's easier said than done, but I couldn't defend a double for my life. So instead of having a square stance, I had a sugar foot stance. So it turned into a sweep single more than a double. So it was really just like respecting other people's styles and whatnot. And that kind of translated really well into my college game. And then I just evolved from there. But in terms of high school, so I was undefeated going into States, same weight class as Nick Soriano, Pat Glory, some pretty good guys. So I had a few matches where I was able to test to see where I'm at with these guys. I won all of them. So I was 35-0, I think, going into high school. And it was my big break to kind of get, some colleges, some last second colleges, to see where I might end up. I ended up losing my first match to a kid from Robbinsville. I dropped a close one. I think it was 4-2 or whatever the case is, but I ended up taking seventh. And for me, I to make it to the podium, it was good, but I knew, and everyone that coached me knew, that I was better than that. So for the recruiting process, because I was a 113 pounder, it was tough. And I knew that I had kind of had my back against the wall with that one. So I was looking at Wyoming Seminary as a post grad, and that was the only school I didn't end up getting into. So I visited school, met Scott Green, practiced with the team and everything, didn't get in. So I realized at that point, I was I don't know where I want to go. I was looking at York. I visited York.
York.
I got into Hofstra, got into University of Buffalo, got letters from Air Force. I got a letter from Duke, but I was I'm not getting into Duke with my grades. Didn't know what I wanted to do. So I applied to Johnson Wales, went for criminal justice at every school besides Johnson Wales. I went for accounting, and I took a visit. One of my best friends at the time, his brother wrestled there. He was a two-time All-American, or he All-American once at that point. So I would have had his senior year with me. And I visited him, asked his honest opinion, and then from there, the rest was history. I, at the time, thought, all right, I'm an All-American. I'm going to transfer out, go D1, live the life. But, once I went there, I made it to NCAA tournament, but I did All-American, and I loved who I was with. They believed in me, so stuck with them, and it kind of took me where I'm now.
Yeah. So talk about your expectations a little bit coming into college. Is it, like you were saying, you're thinking about transferring out, but so with that being said, was, D3 harder than what you expected, easier, what are your thoughts kind of on that?
Kind of looking back at it now, it is easier if you make it easier for yourself. So if you're a student of the game, you believe in your technique, and you really know your positioning, it's pretty easy, because the pace is different. I've wrestled Midlands. I've wrestled Division I All-American. Yeah, so like it is a big difference. So like for me, I was able to slow the game down a lot. Like at 133 pounds, I was probably the smallest guy in my bracket. I had no business wrestling these guys. I trained for it, but at the end of the day, like I was a 25 all day. But
Yeah.
it was definitely, you could see the difference in the scrambling, the pace. You could slow it down if you're tired. Obviously, like every college guy's been there. If you know how to tie guys up and like
Play the
that's
game.
yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, in terms of like the training schedule, it's a lot different too. I mean, it's more enjoyable for me because if you trust yourself and you trust in your training process, for your coaches not to be on your ass in the off season, dude, it's a walk in the park. Like, when we finished third in the country, every guy was doing what they're supposed to without the coach telling them. So our practices were
Yeah.
super, super in and out, super laid back. If anyone saw us at a tournament, we were the guys that were laying on our backs when everyone was warming up and their teams were going through practice at tournaments beforehand. Like
Yeah.
we had no pressure, and like to have that liberty at the level it was great. We really just had total independency, and we just had to do everything on our own time, and that's pretty much it.
And sometimes that's just kind of like what you need, like, to really like,
Oh
in order to
yeah,
grow a little bit, like you kind of had to, find it within like yourself, like, all right, really sit down and evaluate, like, oh yeah, this weekend I had some trouble, getting off a bottom or whatever.
yeah.
This weekend I kind of like what you're saying with conditioning. I got too tired. I got to pick it up in practice and drilling and stuff like that. So yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, sometimes that's a little better. So like, was Matt wrestling at all like an adjustment for you, since you did kind of say you're a little undersized for the weight, coming in at senior 113,
Yeah.
sometimes you can run into some troubles there.
So the size was definitely a factor. Like, and I had my brief run-ins with it in high school, but in college, I had great lungs, and my technique was pretty solid going into freshman year. So I was really nervous though. Like honestly, like I didn't know what to expect out of myself because I'd never really wrestled any college guys or whatnot. But my first match ever, I got majored. So that's my first match ever at the Ithaca tournament. And I was really down on myself. My coach was like, you could beat this guy." So I ended up wrestling back all the way to third place, and I beat the same guy in overtime the next day. And that
You
was
wrestled one
just
of our you wrestled one of our guys there, right? Nuttall, right? Was that the same Ithaca tournament?
no, that was a different year. So I was a year older than him. I wrestled
Okay.
him at the Arwood tournament, and I had a lot of those run-ins where like, it doesn't matter how good you are in the practice room. Like a match is a match. Like it doesn't matter any accomplishments. So I wrestled back. I didn't pin my way through, but I got some like bonus point wins, and then from there I kind of did the same thing. The Roger Williams tournament, second tournament, I ended up losing in the finals to the national finalists that year. I lost 8-0, and then if you fast forward into NCAs, I was beating him going to the third period, like that same guy in my first match. So I ended up losing like 9-5, I think, or 9-6, but it was just a matter of like I didn't really understand how good I actually was, and to finally like utilize and tie things up towards the end of my career, like I started to believe in myself. I didn't really believe in myself, and that was more mental than anything. Physically, I was completely undersized, but wrestling wise, I was on top of my game. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So we were talking a little bit off camera about some of like JWoo's, history. You guys are one of
Oh
the,
yeah.
you guys are a perennial power. But fun fact for you, Bobby here was the first ever 4-time NCAA qualifier for them, actually. So kind of like talk about that feat and like what kind of means to you and what it meant to the program at the time and everything about that.
Yeah, honestly, like I was probably my biggest critic, as I'm sure every other wrestler is, but I really wanted to like take a step back every year and say like, what did I do? Didn't matter if it was 1-10 or if it was 50-0. Like, did I get better from last year? That's all that matters, because you see guys that Zeke Moisey, like national finalist, is like what, freshman year,
Yeah.
and like there's injuries and stuff. It happens, but like I didn't have any injuries at the time, so I was like, how am I getting better? So freshman year, I didn't win the region. Sophomore year, I ended up winning it. Junior year, I beat the guy that beat me in the region finals my freshman year. And then senior year, I won, I think, like 20-10. So I capped it off in my home gym. It means a lot, you know. I mean, to have like kind of my own little like accomplishment. And actually, I was the first, but the next weight was my teammate Joe Freddy, who was also a 4-time. So we were technically doing it together.
Yeah,
But,
1A and 1B.
Yeah. But to do that, even with him, it's like, you know, to do this stuff with someone or with your team that they've been through hell with you. I mean, like, there's not enough light shed onto the stories that we face behind the closed doors and stuff, to whether it's make weight, to get back from an injury, personal lives, like whatever it is, everyone's battling their demons. So like no one at the end of the day is really on their A game when it comes to like a tournament or a match. Like everyone's fighting something. So to like be that consistent in the postseason, it meant a lot to me. Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, you were NCAA qualifier or region runner-up freshman year, region champion sophomore year, but don't All-American. So talk about kind of getting over that hump your junior year, you know, to All-American.
Honestly, like you know, in terms of like how I handled losses, I started to like care less and stop. I was such a crybaby when I first started wrestling, especially in like college when I was a freshman. I took it so seriously. But my sophomore year, I was a 2 seed. I ended up losing overtime the quarters, and I lost in the blood round to a kid I beat during the season. So like I had the chance. I had the chance to do it. I didn't. And I really just, you know, took it what it was. I was pretty upset, but like, you know, that entire summer I worked with, you know, guys that ended up making national finals with me. And the year after, Steve Jarrell, I worked out with some guys from Brown University. So my junior year, I knew, even though I didn't All-American, I was consistent. Obviously rankings don't mean shit. I was consistent in rankings. I was consistent with my wrestling. I knew I was there. So when it came to the blood round, I've been through it in states. I've been through it in college. So I was actually losing going into the blood round. I actually lost in the quarters though to the kid that beat me in the blood round the year before. I lost overtime again. He was great from University of Wisconsin. Yeah, Zach Denny, beast. We lost. It was like a 30-minute match. It's on track. It's a really long match, but
Nate and Fix, Nick Siriano type esque.
Dude, literally. So to lose from that, I honestly didn't even it was a great match. I was like, I wrestled great. I just shook my head off and I was like, all right, I got All-American. I just got to take third now. So first things first, I got on drag first 5 seconds. And then I reversed him when he threw legs in. And then I pinned him with a cradle that I've never hit in a match. But, and then it comes back to, what have you done in practice room? So I practice cradles, headlocks, whatever, thousands of times. And I practice it like I'm going to hit it in a match. And the opportunity usually never presents itself, but to prepare myself for these moments is and to actually get the pin in the blood round was it was the best feeling I ever had. Taking third was good, but getting on that podium the first time was it was probably the best feeling ever, especially because we only had five guys make the NCAA tournament, and for Johnson Wales, and we had all 5 guys All-American, and we took 4th with only 5 guys. I'm not sure if that's too common, but to do that with guys that we went through hell with, it was the best feeling, honestly.
So do you think you kind of needed that loss your sophomore year in the blood round?
Yeah.
Just knowing that you were like you said, you beat the guy, early in the season, and then you lose to him in the blood round. Did that give you any sort of confidence? Okay, I can do this thing. I can All-American, Yeah,
I
was honestly right there with these guys.
My biggest fault is probably that was the complacency. I wanted to get on the podium and that's it. And I realized that after I took 7th, I made it, and I knew that that loss motivated me more than anything the year before and the year before that, because even my freshman year, one of the guys that All-American I beat in the region tournament. It happens. It's it is what it is. But once I All-Americaned, I lost to a guy that I beat during the season, and it just comes back to like, complacency. And I realized that once I got my medal and my trophy, I was like, fuck, I should have done a lot better than that. And then that kind of tied into the next year. Obviously I got hurt, but my 5th year, I literally did not give a single fuck. I knew I was either going to win it or I was taking third. There's no other options. So
Yeah.
it like in terms of like how things played out, it definitely played out into my favor of like taking advantage of like my history and like how I can, learn from it. But it is what it is. I have no regrets really with how things
I
planned out.
agree. Yeah, so you kind of alluded to this earlier, but talk about you broke your ankle your first senior year, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So talk about that a little bit of like, the process of getting a medical red shirt and like when you found out, like was it like a phone call from, Coach Morris or somebody in the
Yeah.
athletic
So
department? So
it's I it was a high ankle sprain the first time. It was December 3rd or like first week of December. It was like it was at like it was like an Oneonta match, like random match. I was up, I think it was like first period. I was up by like 6 or whatever. I cut him. Kid gets the shot. He has it in his armpit. I'm just fending off, and he, just tries to do like a backwards like kick and kind of kick the back of my knee, and like I just landed on my butt, but my foot, basically my heel landed on my butt, and I landed the wrong way, and I just remember it. I don't know if it was a pop. I mean, teammates said there was a pop. I don't remember. I just remember it hurting so much. I ended up finishing the match and I ended up getting the tech with the foot, but after that, I was not looking good. I was trying to come back for national duels, which is an exact month after. So I've been training, every week for like my entire life. Nothing crazy, whether it's just running, wrestling, drilling, nothing. But to sit out from that, I didn't really, have like an idea of what to do. So when I came back, my weight was usually good. For a 25 pounder, I would get up to like 35. And that was my heaviest. So I came back from Christmas, which is like a week. We have a week of practice going into national duels. I was like 139. And to do that for 14 pounds for a 125 pounder versus
it's a
14
lot
pounds
more
for
than
a heavyweight,
yeah, it's a
completely different
big
ballgame.
difference.
So I ended up making the weight. I wrestled with a taped ankle. I was probably at honestly like maybe 50%. Like I could drill. I didn't wrestle live. I sparred. I didn't really test like what I could do with it. So I ended up wrestling with it. I made weight, and I ended up making it to the second day. We were in the semis against Augsburg, and I had to make weight again, and it was really tough, honestly. Like I had to stay up till like 4 a.m. running stairs. The last 2 pounds were probably like the equivalent of like 10 pounds to a normal person. So it was really tough. Like mentally though, like to get through that, like I apply that to like my everyday life now. If I can get through like this shit that I went through when I was in college, I could do anything. So I ended up wrestling against Augsburg, like against the kid I beat for 7th, 8th, and then I basically re-sprained it really badly, and it ended up pushing me back a lot longer. So that happened in January. I was done for the year. I didn't know if I was gonna get my red shirt because I wrestled a decent amount of matches. I think I had like almost like 15 matches, maybe.
Yeah.
And we applied for it. We were like, fuck it, sit out. I had so many things going through my head. I was like, my career's done. I was ranked, I think, like, I don't know, like 2nd or 3rd. I had a shot to win it. I didn't know what to do, so I sat out. I was in a boot for X amount of months. And then we were just playing the waiting game with Moose. We sent in all the paperwork, and I think around May, I did get the red shirt. So from that point, Jay Albus, my teammate, he dropped down. He won the NCAA title. we, instead of like waiting till like September that year, we waited. I just asked him, I was like, do you want to go 25 again? Do you want me to go 33? Uh, you know, he ended up saying, yeah, I want to go 25 again. I was like, perfect. So I was training for 33. I was going to start 25 just in case, you know, to do the same respect that he did for me. He dropped down for the team. And then, yeah, that was pretty much it. It was a really, really nervous waiting game. Like, cause at the time that was my identity. That was my existence, was college wrestling. So to kind of like end it on such a sad note was really like, it was a weird feeling, honestly. Like I was not happy at all. So to kind of end things on my terms at the end of the day I'm super grateful because we have, you know, many stories of kids ending their
Yeah.
careers. So
So like, was it like, I don't know, like kind of like talk about your emotions a little bit. Like, was it like a kind of like a weight lifted off your shoulder when like coach calls you like, hey,
yeah,
Bobby, like, you know, like you're good for next year. We got the red shirt, you know, like we got it all
yeah.
figured
I
out.
mean, it was it's a lot because I was really lucky to have not just like to perform well for myself, but we had a team that had a chance to win NCAA titles. So it's a lot more pressure when, even though Jay won it, I still had to wait to fill because Joe Ferretti was going up or whatever the case is. Like, or no, we had a backup from at 41 drop down to 33 and he All-American as well. So that guy graduated. His name is Joe Vicente. So 33, there's a hole. And I was like, if like me getting that red shirt cleared, it was like, it was a great emotion just because I had another year of, you know, chasing my dream. I had another year of being with the guys. And honestly, no one really knows, but because I got that redshirt year, I was able to get my first job out of college because they had a program that opened that year. So if I didn't get that red shirt, I don't know where my life would be. My life would be completely different, honestly, because I would probably be I would be doing accounting, but I ended up getting into advising with Merrill Lynch. So it's crazy.
Yeah. You brought this name up just right now with Jay Alvis. Talk to me about like the impact that he had you on your career and you know, the success that you had
Uh,
with him.
yeah, no. So he was one of the best like practice partners I've had. Like he was one of the nicest kids, had one of the greatest paces. Wasn't like exactly like a hardo with like, as you met, he wrestles super tough, but when it came to the practice room,
Practice room.
super slick. He gave me a look that I was able to wrestle more physical wrestlers with. I was able to give him a look of wrestling with more like technical but funky wrestlers. So we complemented each other's game really well in that sense, and we respected each other's game. Super nasty on his feet. I was pretty good on the mat, and when we wrestled in the practice room, it was pretty much like who's gonna do what because we knew what we were all gonna do. But he definitely changed my game, and I mean I hope I changed his too. Like obviously he ended up doing pretty well with everyone
Going
that
back
was
to back.
yeah. So it was I was spoiled with drill partners. I've had guys from that were all Americans to, you know, like the practice room warriors that were super great, that they were just there for us. So that room was like my junior and senior and second senior year. It was insane, man, to have those many guys. One guy's hurt, you're like, all right, this guy's in, let's go. And then everyone knows their role, and it was awesome.
Well, I mean, yeah, exactly. Kind of like what you were saying. So it was like, you know, you got hurt at 25, you know, Jay drops down, wins an NCAA title, like then you had
Yeah.
like a backup 41 drop down. He was even an All-American that you don't see
Yeah.
that every day. So that's really like a testament to like, you know, the kind of like the program that you guys have, your coaching,
That's
you
that's
know,
the
stuff like
biggest
that.
thing is to your point, when people ask like, especially like high school kids, you know, the coaches like really love on them, and like the question, they don't know what questions to ask because they just want to wrestle in college. But like if you're looking at schools, you should look at the guys, not the guys that are the highly touted recruits, but the nobodies. Like how many of those guys come to be somebody? And my coach has literally made so many nobodies into who the fuck is that? Like this guy's an animal, like out of
Yeah.
nowhere. His scouting is insane because he doesn't look at just the numbers of like, all right, his record's 20-5. He was a region runner up in New Jersey. Like, he's like, how does this guy wrestle? Does it make sense to like bring him on? Like, yeah. And, to show that my coach gives that much like emphasis and like recognition to that to a kid, especially in high school, and not to like, put a like down, but like he really does the whole nine, just like a Division I coach would. There's no difference besides the fact that we can't train year round. That's it. So.
Yeah. So you kind of like brought it up a little. So with your whole, like, working in finance now, so explain to the fans, what exactly you're doing and then like how wrestling kind of prepared you for that.
Yeah. So right now I work for JP Morgan. I'm a private client banker. Pretty much I do banking for like higher net worth clients. I was able to get a lot of licensing done. I don't know if there's any finance guys that are looking into this, but I got my Series 7, my Series 63, my SIE, my life and health, and I'm actually going to NYU right now for my certified financial planner. So to kind of make everything make sense, I'm right now, my end goal is to kind of work as a trust officer, basically manage trust fund babies' money. And, it's client facing. You're able to talk to people, but at the end of the day, you're able to make decisions that can help people make money, save money, preserve money, whatever the case is. But in terms of wrestling, my hardest day in work is probably nothing compared to my worst day in a wrestling room or in a match. So it's a completely different mindset. Like it's really hard to explain, honestly, but like you just have to be very, very just respectful to your clients. You gotta obviously not say anything or speak up. But at the end of the day, like how I've prepared for wrestling is how I trained is honestly like identical to how my study routine is for my exams. That's the best way to put it. So right now for my CFP, my certified financial planner exam, that's in 2023. So I have a year to study. At the end of the day, it's up to me to put in the time.
Yeah, like that's kind of like your NCAA championships.
Dude,
now.
yeah. So like I was always like, dude, I'm so fucking bored. Like I have nothing to like look forward to. So I mean, I've dabbled with like jits and shit as on the side, but like in terms of this exam, that's pretty much my NCAA tournament. It's in March. So
Yeah.
that's pretty much it. But like the biggest thing though I will say is that I've been able to hop from Merrill Lynch to JP Morgan in 2 years. So it's the biggest thing is complacency and knowing your worth. That's pretty much it. Like you might be having a good job, you might be making decent money, but like, is there more responsibility you can get out of that? And usually more responsibility means more money. So, I'm trying to figure out my worth. I'm trying to improve it. I'm trying to improve my responsibilities. And at the end of the day, like everything from wrestling is contributed to that. So I'm just trying to stay on that upward path.
So backtracking a little bit, right? 5th year senior year.
Yep.
Heading into NCAAs, you're one of the top guys in the country. And then I think you dropped a match in the quarterfinals, right?
Pre-quarters, yeah.
Pre-quarters.
Yeah.
Okay, so talk about wrestling back for the third. Obviously Jay was one of the top teams in the country. Like, at that point, you're kind of like not wrestling for yourself. You're wrestling for the team. You got Augsburg, Wartburg, schools like that. Coach Morris needed guys like you to like step up, and wrestle back and get the next best thing. So like talk about that a little bit and kind of like the wild ride that you had there. Since I know you had a lot of close matches and stuff.
Oh my God, yeah. So honestly, like when I think of that tournament, the only song that like reminds me of it is "My Way" by Frank Sinatra, because I did it my way. Best feeling in the world. But to give you like the full layout, first match, I had a really tough one against an All-American from Wabash, Owen Doster. I won a nail biter. It was 3-2. So my second match, I was like, all right, I have this kid from Stevens. Honestly, I looked past him in the sense. I was like, all right, I have Jordan James after this. And I've never got pinned or teched in college, never really got put to my back, but with the danger rule, I tried doing a ankle roll and, I got dangered. So I ended up giving backs after that. So I was down 4-0, ended up tying at 4-4. same shit happened to get the match winning takedown. I ended up going to my back again. So it was 9-5. After that though, I looked at my coach. I was like, I can't win. We gotta take third. Like, that's it. I didn't say anything else. I walked up to my dad. I was like, he was upset because he wanted me to win it. But I was like, I'm gonna take third now. He's like, Bobby, you gotta win every match to do that. I'm like, not saying I couldn't, but he's like, don't look past anyone. I was like, all right, that's fine. But after that, it was I was just in the driver's seat every match. I was in the I was looking at my coach in the corner. Like, we trusted my technique. We trusted everyone I was wrestling against. We knew that we could beat them. But that was pretty much it. When it came to like the scores, I knew that I just had to win, whether it was by 1 point, 10 points, whatever. So I had really good leg defense. So I was the 4th seed. I was wrestling the 5 seed first match in the WrestleBacks. Like, what the fuck? So kids like 6 foot, and it was Loris. So like, they were in the team race, and I was like, all right, if I knock this guy out, they're fucked. So I ended up beating him 3-2, I think, or 4-3. And I just played the game. Like, no takedown the first period, reversed him in like 5 seconds. I was really good on bottom. So in the third period, he picked down. I had riding time. I was like, if I get in a weird position, I'm just gonna let him reverse me, because I'll know I'll reverse him back. And that's pretty much exactly what I did. I basically let him reverse me. I looked in the corner. I just gave my coach like a head nod, ran the clock down, reversed him, and got my routing time. So I won. But after that, I had this
Engelman,
kid,
right?
Engelman. He beat both national finalists.
Yeah,
So
I was gonna say Benny Hoff didn't even AA that year.
Yeah, so
As a returning runner-up.
I had a barn burner with Benny Hoff in the national finals.
Duels.
I was like, yeah, I was like,
8-4.
dude. Yeah, I was like, fuck, I don't want to wrestle this guy. But Rathbun, he beat my ass at national duels. And at the same time, I just was like scared to give bonus, and I didn't. But I was like, I didn't try to win. So I was like, you know what? It is what it is. I'm going to beat whoever. He ends up beating both these guys. I was like, dude, what the fuck? Like, who is this kid? But every Ferrum kid, besides like one kid, I've pinned. So I was like, dude, there's no way I'm losing to a kid from Ferrum. So
no way. Ain't no way.
No. So I ended up pinning him in the first period, just with like a half and a wrist. I just kept jumping sides, and I've never even practiced that before. It just came naturally. And it was in the first, it was like, I think it was like in a minute 10. And I don't really pin anyone, but to get that and get bonus to my team, I was like, I'll take it.
Even something like that, it's huge, getting bonus points in the wrestle.
Yeah. Everyone was getting pins. I was like, dude, I got to join the party. So yeah. I got a pin. Well, actually, no, I lied. That was actually when I All-American. My All-American match, I can't believe I forgot, was against Josh Stenger from lacrosse. That match was that was probably like, the best way to explain it is like, that was the match I lost my junior year in states in high school. That was the match I lost my sophomore year in the quarters. That was like the almost match. So like, I was losing most of the match. He basically fast forward to third period, I was down by 1 with like 30-40 seconds left, and he shot on me. And like, this is the time where you have to understand that if you're losing, you can't just score if you're shooting. You have to score if they shoot too. So I ended up getting into a scramble that obviously I came out on top of, and I rode him out for like the last 10 seconds. I gave up a stall call. So I ran 4 seconds off, whatever. And then the second time I just held on for dear life, and I won. But like, that match meant more to me than probably like maybe anything else. Cause like, I don't think, no one really knows, I got my appendix taken out the first day of practice of my 5th year. So I came back like not in good shape at all, like in every aspect, mentally, physically, not good set of lungs. So like, to come back and to kind of go in that trajectory and like to win that match, I was like, dude, this is it. And at the same time, I like humbled myself, saying like, I still got to take third. So the match after that, I ended up wrestling the kid that beat me. So it's my last match ever, or last tournament ever. Lost to a Stevens kid. I'm wrestling him again. My first tournament ever, I lost to a Stevens kid first match, beat him in overtime. And that's exactly what I did. I beat the kid I lost to in overtime to go for third. So I ended my career the same way I started it. Lost a tough one, a kid from Jersey, beat him. But again, I won in overtime. And then for third, same thing. I won in overtime. So like my entire life, I've lost those close nail biters. I was always on the opposite end of it. And to kind of correct those mistakes I've made in my entire life, in my last tournament ever, whether I wrestled good or not, but to, get your hand raised, that's all that matters. And it was the best feeling I've had. We probably had like close to like maybe 60-ish, 50 to 60 people in the JWU stands, which is pretty big for a Division III crowd.
Yeah.
It was right in front of them too, and like honestly, it was amazing. It was the best feeling. The context though is that we only had 3 All-Americans out of 9 guys that we sent. So
Oh, really? That 2019 year, only 3 guys aid?
Yeah, so we took third
Wow.
with 3 All-Americans, which is really weird.
Well, I mean, Jay won at 25. You
took third. And then Tam Thomas at 184 took third. We had guys that were blood rounding, like to win through after seeing, my heartbreak to the guys that didn't place. Dude, it sucked. I mean, I knew I had to do it for them, not just me. I do it for my coach, but like that's the stuff that really like, doesn't really get spoken about as a lot, is that like,
unsung heroes.
Yeah, you grow up with these guys. I went to war with these guys, and like to not see some people accomplish what they wanted to, it puts a lot more pressure on you. So, I mean, for me at that point, I didn't care. I thrived with it, but there's a lot of guys that they don't really get to speak about, like what type of pressure it is to wrestle for a good team too. That like, in the blood round, that was probably one of the most like nerve-wracking feelings. Because yeah.
And then I mean, I heard this from like, Tony Ramos, I think it was. It's like wrestling's, a very unforgiving sport. You put the time in, you put the work in, and just to like, not get what you want, not all American, like you were saying, that you had like however many guys in the blood round, like, like not, get what they want. And it's just one of those things where it's just like, I don't know, unforgiving, like.
Well, I agree. And like, I'm not saying this to kind of like make anyone feel better, but like what you get out of it, like my roommate is he wrestled at Rutgers. He was a 25-pounder Shane Metzler. Like he's my roommate. We talk about wrestling like a lot, and like he didn't really get what he wanted out of it in the postseason with like college wrestling. For the Big Ten, it's fucking tough. But like his message that he got out of it, like it prepared him for the real world. It prepared him for the what's to come, whether it's the worst feelings or worst situations. Like if you get that message and you respect it and receive it and apply it to your life, that's like, it sounds so cliche, but that's like the moral victory, and like you're winning in the long run. Obviously the short term is getting a NCAA trophy, but my best friends, the ones that weren't even that good in wrestling, and they took what they got out of the sport and applied it to their career, their hobbies or whatever, they're all doing really well. So like, that's the biggest thing, is like seeing people get the right message out of it.
Yeah. So with all that being said, like what advice would you give to like a younger Bobby Jordan, or any like, and I know you're doing clinics right now, like any of your guys' that come to you, like what advice would you give them?
Honestly, my biggest thing is like, when I do private lessons, like I want my kids to understand on their own what they're doing. And what I mean by that is I'm not gonna be able to hold their hand every day. I'm not gonna be there. I don't know what my situation is. I might move to California. Who knows? Like, so what I teach these kids, I try to teach them how to teach themselves down the road. So like if I show them a sweep single, I want them to understand how they can defend that sweep single, because I'm explaining the positioning to like with extreme detail. And I want these kids to be a student of the sport. So like I make every kid I do privates with, I'm like, I show them my matches. I show them what I did wrong because I'm not perfect by any means. So like, and I show Division I guys hit it. I show international guys if they hit the same technique. And like, when you get to that point, you really love it. Like, I've never had any privates in my life, really. I've had some when I was in high school, but like, I mean, I kind of just like watched wrestling, and I rolled around a lot to teach myself, all right, this feels good, this doesn't. I have to put my shoulder here with the single or whatever. So when I work with these kids, I really try to explain like through fine detail, like what I expect out of them. I talk to them about life too. You know, it's the college recruitment process is insane. So you got to think about not just, is this the best fit for wrestling, but is this the best fit for what I want in my career? A lot of guys, like if they want to live in the city, I preach NYU, I preach all those schools because, you know, at the end of the day, if you get that NYU degree, you're already lived in the city, you already have connections that can take you really far. So not a lot of people realize that like wrestling is, you know, not like the Olympics isn't the end game. Like it's the end game is like, what can you do with your school and your resources to get to where you want to be, whether it's with your major, or like if you want to change your major, like you got to utilize that stuff. And everyone has the access, it's just that no one realizes until they graduate. So that's probably my biggest thing is like focus on what you want out of life and like what can you do in college to prepare for that. If it was me, I would have focused on my grades a little more. I worked in a bank in college, so that kind of helped me with like my resume and everything. But the
Like
rest
your
is
overall understanding.
yeah, exactly. So like for me, like it was definitely being able to handle accounting major, wrestling, working at a bank, doing everything I was doing on the side with my side. It's like it's to be like have all those like wear many hats at such a young age. You know, it's you're like a boss's dream. So that's pretty much. Don't just consider yourself a wrestler. Like you have a personality and like you're a person besides that. So being able to figure who you are outside of the wrestling room is probably the biggest thing because people have a lot of identity crises once the season
It's
ends.
all
And
said and done.
yeah, I did too. And like, you got to know your worth outside of the wrestling room, and like, you got to be a contributing citizen at the end of the day. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So how was the transition from like, being like, competitor to like, being like kind of like a coach? Like do you like it so far? So
Yeah.
far so good?
So I mean, like, I try to get in the room every week, and like I have been, but the biggest, honestly, it's great. I mean, in my position, because I did what I had to do. Can I look back and say I could have done this? Yeah, but I didn't though. So to come to terms with that and accept that, and to kind of just help the next wave of kids that I mean, I was good in high school. Like as a freshman, sophomore, I was nowhere as near as these kids are now. It's a different level. So to kind of explain to them like the techniques I'm showing or how they're doing compared to how I was doing, I'm like, some kids think I'm like a really good wrestler. Some they're like, you wrestle D1, or I'm like, no, I wrestle D3. So to hear, like, to explain to them like where they're at and kind of like relate it to me and like show that I'm human too. Like it really like makes them feel good about themselves. So it feels good to be a coach because I didn't realize how much detail goes into it. You're basically like a guidance counselor to these kids. You're a shrink to these kids. They tell you everything. They tell you what's wrong with their life, to tell you like the worries about the college recruitment process, and like the fact that I'm able to not help them with just wrestling but with like anything else that goes into the outside world of wrestling, it feels really good. And like it's my way of giving back because I've had so many people help me get me where I am, so it's only right that I try to continue that trend. So
Yeah, and it's like you hear it all the time. Like, it's one thing to like, have a coach explain a move to you, and
yeah.
then for you to explain it to someone else, like you really got to understand like why it works and how it works, how you properly,
Yeah.
like
Oh my
set
God.
it
Yeah.
up. Like,
They're asking like, why does this work? Like, how do you do it? And I can't. And like, the best thing for me is like, because I'm like still young, like I get to wrestle these guys, so I feel if it feels good or not, like if the pressure's right, if their head position's right, whatever it is. So that's probably the biggest difference is like, my not I love my high school coach and my college coach, but like to kind of be a hands-on coach with these kids, usually, and like preparing them in the high, like going, all these kids that I've started working with when I graduated, they're about to go to college now, and it's crazy. So to work with kids and see how they're doing, like I live through them now. You know what I mean? I'll be like, oh yeah, I coached that kid. This kid did this or whatever. Like, it's a good feeling because they know that I care, and like I know that they're, when I see them hit the technique I show them or whatever it is, it's awesome. It's honestly like I like it better than me competing because I don't have to really worry about much.
Yeah. So not only were you a alum from JWU, but you're also alum from Flickr. Talk about some of the
Yeah.
kind of like when did you start getting into that?
Yeah. So honestly, like Flickr, I started selling wrestling shoes or like flipping wrestling shoes like 8th grade, 9th grade. My cousin was a state finalist, three-time state finalist, Craig Dela Cruz. He gave me my first pair of Colette Speeds. So I didn't know what they were. I was like, dude, these are fucking sick. He got them from some website in the UK, some boxing website in the UK, and me for free. And from there, I was like, dude, these are sick. And like my parents really like didn't really give me too much money like to spend on my own. So like anytime I had the chance to like sell them and like do some arbitrage with the pricing, like I bought them for 100, sell them for 200. I was like, oh my God, this is the best. So started going to tournaments, buying off kids, and like, that kind of set me up. I never worked in college, so that's how I made money. I turned that into thrifting, and I started thrifting clothing and shoes, started flipping that, and I started making decent money without working, and it worked in college. And even now, like I pretty much, I mean, if you can't see, like I thrifted all my decorations in my apartment and everything. It saved me a ton of money. At the end of the day, like who knows where I'll end up down the road if I open my own vintage coffee store or what, but it's one little hobby turned into like a really good stream of income for me even to this day. So
do you still have your blue graps at all? Are
yeah, I
those
do.
floating around anywhere?
Yeah. Yep. So I
The
have
holy
my blue
crap.
grappers. I'm friends with Chance Marstar on Facebook, and he actually saw me post a picture of me wrestling. He saw them and he asked if those are for sale. I said no, because he has them too. But yeah, like I didn't really wear too many crazy shoes in college, like blue Colats or like freaks or whatever. But I broke out the blue grapplers for regions and for NCAAs. They blew out my last match too. They're fucked. So yeah, it's cool though. Wrestling
Perfect
shoes.
timing, I guess.
Yeah. Honestly, it's now I just wear like Combat Speeds to practice. Like I'm that coach. That's it.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
Bobby, I don't have anything else for you today, but thank you for taking the time to talk to me. And
For sure. Dude, thank you for having me. And if anyone ever needs any help with like college recruitment or any questions, you guys can always reach out to me.
yeah, so all righty.
All right.
Episode 3 in the books.
Yeah, see you, man.
See ya.